This week's episode of Wine Wars is sponsored by Wink. Go to trywink.com/Wine Wars for $20 off and free shipping on your first purchase from Wink. Spring has finally showed up in the Midwest, and I am celebrating with a bottle of 2017 Outer Sound Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough, New Zealand. And this is everything I want in a Sauvignon Blanc. It's high acid, it's crisp, it's refreshing, it's got fruit in there, tropical fruit, and it's got a nice hint of grass in it, which I really like in my Sauvignon Blancs. If you too would like to celebrate spring with a bottle of Outer Sounds, go to trywink.com, that's trywinc.com/Wine Wars to get $20 off and free shipping on your first purchase of Wink wine. This week's episode of Wine Wars is also sponsored by Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/Wine Wars for a free audiobook and 30-day free trial of Audible. Normally I recommend a wine book, but this week I'm going something more on the Star Wars bend. I'm recommending you check out The Hero with a Thousand Faces. This book is largely seen as George Lucas's inspiration for creating the original Star Wars saga. This book demonstrates how throughout cultures throughout the whole world we have the same story repeating itself of the reluctant hero, picking up arms, coming to defend their land, bumping into the old wise sage, and then ultimately defeating the evil and returning home. Lucas used this book as a point of reference when creating the storyline for the original Star Wars series, the original trilogy. If you would like to check out A Hero with a Thousand Faces, you can go to audibletrial.com/Wine Wars for a free audiobook and 30-day free trial of Audible. Enjoy the show.
Wine Wars, the show with four friends who love three things: wine and Star Wars.
Welcome to Wine Wars. You're joining us as we sniff, sip, and talk about wine live from Madison, Wisconsin. I am your penultimate host, Scott. With me, as always, is my good lady wife, Amy.
Hey, everybody.
Hey. It's just the two of us this week. We recently came back from Napa and Sonoma, California. Ann and Jason are currently out in California, although I don't think they're looking at any wine sites.
No, they're falling down a lot of stones.
A lot of stones. Jason has this habit of taking pictures of himself as if he's died while on vacation. It's very charming. But Amy and I just got back from Napa and Sonoma, and while we were on that trip, we got to meet a very nice young gentleman, stand-up guy. We were able to take part of what was called a Flex Wine Tour.
Yep.
Which is essentially you hire a driver to take you through the region. They know all the wineries. They have the hookup so we can go visit all the cool spots in Napa and Sonoma, and they take us around so we don't get DUIs.
Yeah, but they also tailor it to your taste.
Exactly.
Which was what I thought was really exciting because I have always wanted to go out to wine country, but I didn't want to get stuck in the touristy stuff. So Jake totally saved our butts.
Yep. So this week we are lucky to have on our guide through Napa and Sonoma when we were out there, Jacob Jackson. Welcome to the show, Jacob.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good. How have you been?
Good. Just drinking some wine and hanging out. Here in Napa, right? I mean, it's kind of par for the course, right?
Yeah, it seems like that's a pretty standard thing for you most days.
Yeah.
Well, if his Instagram handle is Jake The Wino, right?
Yeah, that's me, Jake The Wino. So thanks for the plug. My wife and I were sharing a little bottle of wine. It's Monday, so she's a teacher, and we call this our Monday wine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we pull out the good wine on Mondays because she's got 4 more days of that.
Well, let's jump right into it. So we met you obviously just a few weeks ago, but I'd like to hear a little bit first of how you got into wine, not necessarily the Flex Wine Tours, but just how wine as a field grabbed you and you decided that would be your profession.
It's a really interesting route that I've gone through to end up in wine. I lived in Northern California, and people know this Napa regionally as Northern California as well, but I was up way on the coast, Lost Coast in Arcata. In college there, I was working for a winemaker named Mark Carter. Okay, he owns Carter Cellars, Envy Cellars, and that's ENBY. I was working for him in Eureka in his restaurant 301. And the first job I had really in the wine scene was coming up with food and wine pairings. Okay, so 4 o'clock, I showed up at work and started drinking. So that sounds like a tough job, right? But I really liked it.
Yeah.
And as I finished up school there, I had moved down to Sonoma County, and originally was doing the wine program at Sonoma County. Once I moved to Sonoma County, I started working for a series of restaurants in Sonoma County. I worked for Charlie Palmer, Dry Creek Kitchen in Healdsburg. Worked for another restaurant out in Sebastopol that's no longer there, called the French Garden, which is no longer there, but it's not the same as the French Laundry. French Laundry is Thomas Keller over in Yountville. When I moved over to Napa, I had lived in Sonoma for approximately 5 years. Moved to Napa and started working for a winery in Rutherford. I started working for Sullivan Family Vineyards, winery with about 14 employees total. And so from there, I got to see the wine production from vine to bottle. And I got to be hands-on with every aspect of the winemaking process at Sullivan. From there, I had met James, and he was doing tours. So I wanted to see a little bit more of the winemaking process. And so I started doing tours throughout Napa, and then over in Sonoma. And so now I do both. And it's been a long, fun journey to, being out in the vineyard every day.
So is that where you think you want to kind of stay in wine, or is this kind of a stepping stone for you?
There's a lot of opportunities working for, different tour companies. I work with Flex Tours, which is what you guys were on. I also work for another tour company out of Sonoma. And so one of the things I really like about working for these companies is that I'm working for mom and pops. I'm working for really small companies, and I'm able to have these relationships with my employer that are a little bit more close knit, right? So we get each other gifts. We spend the holidays together. It's a little bit different than working for a larger corporation. So
it's not punch in and go home.
Exactly. And so I don't really have any coworkers, which is it's a blessing in a sense, right? Because every day I get new coworkers, right? Or actually I get clients that go with me, and so it's new all the time, new people, new places. And then I think that really fits with my personality. So
is that something that, so you kind of talked about the family winery aspect of it, and 14 employees at the winery that you're working at. And that's something that we got to see when we were out there. We were kind of taken by you to smaller wineries. Is that really your focus on the wine tours that you try to highlight, or is that something that sometimes you do take them to the larger producers that may have, a couple hundred acres of land?
So in Napa and in Sonoma, there's 400 wineries in Napa, another 450 over in Sonoma. So there's around 1,000 wineries out here between the two places. Sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on how you count a winery, right? As you know, as a home winemaker, I mean, there's a lot of people making wine in their garage. And so we got everything from warehouse wineries, which are basically somebody rents out a little shop, to large wineries. So Kendall Jackson makes 8 million cases a year under all their parent companies. I like to visit a wide variety, and I like to tailor the wineries to my clients. So I may get a group of girls that's out here for a bachelorette party, and sometimes the larger venues are great because you can show up and, get wild. That's great. Right? You can kind of get wild. That's awesome. Like, let's do that there. And then some of the boutique wineries I like to save for clients who really appreciate some of the smaller lot wines, right?
That maybe won't get as wild as the bachelorette party.
Right. And so it's all about relationships here, and so there are a couple family-owned wineries that love the bachelorette groups, and I love to bring them out there. But I also get divorce parties too. So yeah, we definitely have some places that are better for parties. There's some places with some huge patios that entertain large groups, and then we've got these smaller, intimate places that cater to groups smaller than 6. So I try to tailor the winery to the clients coming out.
Yeah, and I think something also that was kind of interesting for us while we were getting. So you drive from place to place, and you're able to give us little tidbits of knowledge. And we were even going from, I think, the first stop, which was pre, to our second, and you were talking about how while doing the tours during the wildfires, it was kind of very surreal because there were, literally the mountains, the hillside is up on fire, and you're down with a group of maybe bachelorettes or something, and it's just kind of like something out of like a Coen Brothers movie or something
Or
weird.
Mad Max, the wine version.
Exactly.
Napa story.
So it was neat for us to see, talking with the producers, like, yep, the wildfire came, like my house, this building was on fire. So what was that like for you to be there during that event and trying to take people around and still make the best of it?
Yeah, because it was like 3 weeks of burning, right?
It was chaotic. That's an easy way to say it. It was definitely chaotic, and we didn't really know exactly what was happening. So the fires kicked off on a Sunday night, and there's 3 main fires that affected both Napa and Sonoma. Those fires, the Atlas Fire, which came pretty close to our house. We're on the east side of Napa. There's the Tubbs Fire, which is up in Calistoga and moved over to Santa Rosa in Sonoma County. And then there's the Nuns Fire. So if you're looking at Napa Valley, and it's a valley, it was almost this horseshoe of fire, right? It was mostly at higher elevation. So on Monday morning, I had a tour booked. And we didn't know the extent of the damage. It's normal for us to have wildfires out here in California, but we didn't know containment. It was all kind of new information. One of the biggest challenges on Monday was that nobody's phones worked. So the fact that nobody's phones worked made everything pretty difficult to get information and know what was happening. So I had a pickup at the Westin, and I met these clients I had, mother-daughter. And we said, okay, you guys are game. Let's try it. Let's see what's going on. See if there's anything open. We drove up Valley, and there was one winery that was open. That was Peju. They were open because they were harvesting their grapes. So they were pulling in some of their cab, some of the tail end of the cab that they had left out there. They had started on Sunday, and they were working on that process through Monday. So they said, why not? The Peju family was out there, and they were pouring wine. And so that was our one and only stop for the day. But it was definitely chaotic. And then, we had an extended period of time off due to the fires. So,
yeah. How long was that? So did you see a big drop in people even just setting up tours because of that?
Yeah, I mean, we canceled a lot of tours because of the fires. So it's not just the tour companies that lost business, the hotels lost business. And of course, people have bigger calamities, is that they lost their home and they lost other things. But as far as the economic side, people ended up losing a lot. So hotels lost on reservations, restaurants lost on all the diners that would have come in. But yeah, I mean, that's our busiest season, right? Is because it's October is the busiest month of the year. And then the second week of November, everything kind of slows down until we hit April again. Once we hit April again, things start to pick up. This month's looking really good. So it's losing your busy season and then going into your slow season in a seasonal business that can kind of jam things up.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a season in particular that you think is kind of best bang for its buck? Like you're going to get out there and not be so overwhelmed with other people going on tours?
I think if you come out here and you're able to do it, the last 2 weeks of November, our peak season's pretty much over. The leaves are changing colors. It's great. And so that's one of the best times to do the hot air balloon tour that are out here. So you'll see all the different vineyards, and they're comprised of so many different varietals. And so all the leaves are different colors, and it's a beautiful time of year to be out here. I think January is great as well. We've got a pretty mild climate. So if you're coming from back east, in January, you're going to be loving our weather. Our lows might be in the 50s, so you'll be cool with that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lows in the 50s? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. We have some.
Yeah, we got excited because it got over 60 today. We're like, let's open windows.
Right?
Yeah, we came back, and then so we flew back on a Monday, and on Wednesday I think we got 5 inches of snow. So we'll take the 50s. That's not a problem.
Yeah. We get some days out here that dip down, and as you see going through the vineyards, you'll see these propellers, and those are designed to beat off the frost from coming on to the vines. And that usually happens at night. So, but during the day, if you're out here and you're walking around, it's usually 50s.
Yeah, that sounds so nice.
Yeah.
So that kind of ties into a question that I had for you. When you're bringing these different groups to all different size vineyards, are you seeing like certain trends in what people want to see? Like even like people from the Midwest versus people from California, or people from outside the country? People, I would assume, are coming from all over the world. So are you just seeing like, oh, maybe French people like to go straight for the cabs, or am I just like lumping everybody in too much of a box? You know what I mean?
No, I think that's a great question. I do get people from all over the country and all over the world. I find that a lot of my guests from the South really enjoy some quality hospitality. And so I may line that up with a host that's a little bit more involved. Somebody that's going to spend the extra time with them. I find that some of my New England clients like things to be, a little bit cleaner and have nice lines. My people from the Midwest, they love to. They can drink, so I'll take them out where they pour heavy, right?
That's one thing that helps keep us warm in the winter.
Yeah. So yeah, and then as far as my peeps out of Utah, it's really difficult to get wine in there. So I do have a couple that comes out once a year in an RV, and they load up and go home.
Oh, that's the way to do it.
They come out in an RV, they load up, they go home. But I do have a winery that unofficially sends wine out there. So
we won't name names.
Yeah, we won't name names, but shout out to the Home Depot boxes going out to Utah.
What about interstate? Or would it be intrastate? People who live in California and are touring in California, what are they coming for? What do they want?
We get people that come from all over. There's a lot of great up and coming areas in California. There's a lot of different regions that we have within California. If you go down to Temecula, they have their own little wine area, right? But they've got about 40 wineries. It's just a different scene. So there are often people in Southern California that can pop over there and kind of do a day tour. Oftentimes when you're coming in from all over California, they're just looking to have a good time. We do a lot of staycations, right? My wife and I, we live here in Napa, and so we take a lot of trips down to San Diego. We take trips over to Tahoe. Living in California, there's so much diversity as far as vacations that Napa is just another great tool in the belt. And often those people that are coming from California are coming out here sometimes during our peak season because they're aware the grapes are on the vine. They love to see it. They love to pull the grapes right off the vine and try them. What happens with our California tourism is often in the winter when people are taking vacations in state. They're going to go up to the Sierras. They're going to go up to Tahoe, or they're going to go down to Big Bear and go skiing and do that kind of seasonal. We have some great national parks out here too in the spring that people like to go to.
Yeah, we went to the Muir Redwood Forest when we were out there too. That's a fun road to travel along.
Oh, yeah. I get motion sick, so...
Yeah, that Highway 1 along the ocean for a half hour was...
Yeah, going up it, and then the way to get out of there was to go back down it, and I'm just like, roll down the window.
We've got some windy roads out here. Definitely.
Yeah. Really pretty, though, but, just...
Yeah, it was
got to focus on not spewing. So I'm curious, so you said, you and your wife do a lot of day trips. When you go on tours... For wine in particular, are there any wineries that you are seeking out that hits your particular profile that you like to visit? Or
if not wineries, like certain varietals even.
So usually what I'm looking for is I'm just looking for new. I'm looking for new places. I like exploring new areas and see what other areas are doing. So one of the things that was really fun is we just did a trip out to Auburn, which is just east of Sacramento. And when we were out in Auburn, we went to this winery, Mount Vernon Winery, and they poured 16 wines for $9. And so that was like,
Dang.
sweet, right? That's
Oh,
awesome.
wow.
I was like, this is really cool, what you guys are doing out here. We went on another tour that is also east of Sacramento, and that is called Apple Hill. And so it's they make hard ciders out there. They've got pumpkin patches. They've got breweries and wineries all kind of tied together, which was really awesome. We hit another winery, met the winemaker out there, and tried six of their wines with 6 cheeses for $6, which was cool to see. So when I'm doing it, often if I'm doing it in Napa, I'm doing it for my own research for my clients. So I want to see everything. I want to see what's off the beaten path, and I want to visit some of those regular stops just to make sure that they're maintaining their consistency.
So then, how many wineries would you say you visited then, if you're trying to keep track of all of that for your clients?
It's
There's
tough.
1,000.
Somebody asked me that one time, and I started writing them out.
Mm-hmm.
I got a hair over 200, and I just stopped. So I'd say I was like, okay, I'm done with this. But I'd say it's in between 250 and 300 wineries I've been to.
And that's in what, 4 years, 5 years? You said?
Yeah, and that's just a fraction of what's out here.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more to see, definitely. Which makes it an interesting job, right? Is that I can go new places and see new things all the time.
Yeah, and this was our first trip out there. And we did 2 days with you, and then we did kind of 1 day self-guided tour. And I think we came at a really nice time because the bud break occurred maybe a few weeks earlier. And you got to see the growth really was pretty rapid between the 3 days. You saw quite a bit of difference.
Well, you could even tell like which vines were getting the most sun.
Mm-hmm.
It was just amazing to see everything just exploding this time of year.
And so we ultimately, I think, went to 8 or 9 different spots. And we joined up for 3 clubs. I mean, listeners will tell more details when we get back together with Ann and Jason, but it was really nice that you could go out there and, even if one winery in particular isn't producing something that you love, it's great to see just the operation and the people out there.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Everyone's so enthusiastic about the business and what they do. It was really nice to see that in person.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a really fun experience. Like I feel like we barely scratched the surface. And
Yeah.
Well,
we got to catch up to Jake. So
yeah.
Well, you can always come back.
Yeah. We're definitely have already thought about coming back and bring other people with us. So we'll keep you in touch.
You got to bring the corgis.
The road trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. If people are interested in setting up a tour with you, how can they contact you?
Yeah, just check me out, jakethewino.com. You can read my full bio if you want to know a little bit more about me. I've got a gallery on there as well. Or Flex Tours is how you guys met me, through Flex Tours.
Mm-hmm.
Book through there as well.
How many days a week are you doing tours now?
Now I'm on to 4 or 5 days a week right now. So it's getting busier, but it's going to get even busier when we get July, August, September. Be working 6, maybe 7 days a week.
Well, there you go, listeners. You got to call ahead and book Jake while you can.
I know. He's in demand.
Very in demand.
If you guys are planning on coming out here, or anybody, just a word to the wise, anybody planning on coming out to Napa, there's a lot of things that are important to think about. What time of year you're coming out here, what you want to do. So the best thing to do is to talk to somebody that's already here and kind of knows where to go, where not to go.
Actually, I did have one thing I wanted to talk about. Something that it didn't even cross my mind until we were like 15 minutes from meeting up with you on our first day of our tour. But Scott says to me, make sure not to wear any perfume or scented lotions or anything like that because it'll affect your tasting experience. And it didn't even occur to me. And maybe I'm just living with my head in the clouds, or maybe this is common knowledge. But I feel like it didn't really get mentioned.
Yeah, I don't know if the Flex Tours mentioned it. I mean, I asked for that because I'm a wine nerd and I, wanted to control that. But It's. I mean, I'm not sure if you have any recommendations for people, first timers, if there's anything like that.
Yeah, like any
Absolutely.
faux pas or anything like
Yeah,
that.
totally. I've got a few of those. So fragrances are a no-no. I don't wear cologne on tour because I don't want that, impacting any of my guests. If they're coming out and they're spraying it on, it is what it is. Sometimes we'll crack the window, right? One of the things that I always tell people on our tours, or I try to make sure I bring up, is that oftentimes you'll see in some wineries, it may be more likely with new tasting room personnel, is if you pour out your wine, right, into a pour bucket, and then some people, if you're new at it, or even if you're experienced with it, will pour water into their glass, and then swirl it around and rinse it out, right? Because what they're thinking is I'm going to clear my glass from this wine to the next wine. And actually what you're doing is you're leaving water in there, which may have calcium deposits, and it's going to change the pH of the next wine. So that when you try the next wine, it's not going to be the same when you get it home. So wine to wine to wine is okay in your glass. But if you're going to rinse out your glass with water, you need to buff it before you go on to the next wine. So that's one that I've seen that is kind of tripped people up before. Another one I like to leave people with is just, if you're tasting the wine, taste it once, taste it again, okay? Because the first time it's just going to clear your palate. The second time you're going to be trying the wine. The third time you're going to have fun with it. Yeah, so there's that. And then don't be afraid to try any varietals, right? So there may be something that you just think is not for you, but there may be a winery that thinks that they can do it differently. So
Yeah.
just be open to trying different wines. And if you don't like it, that's okay. Dump it out. But you know yourself, you know your body. And if you pour out wine, it may be likely to bring you something else that you might like more, rather than just trying to finish everything that's in front of you, okay, on your wine tasting.
I never tried dumping out wine.
No, we're from the Midwest.
Yeah.
It was just all so good.
Yeah.
Well, Jake, thank you so much for taking the time to show us around Napa and Sonoma, and thank you for chatting with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we'll definitely be in touch with you again. Hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have to see how our vacation funds stack up this year.
Yeah.
Tax return.
Yep. And again, if people want to find you, they can go to jakethewino.com, at Jake the Wino on Instagram.
Yeah, on Instagram as well.
For listeners, you want to follow us, you can go at Wine Wars Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the things. Please rate and review us on iTunes. Additionally, we are also associated now with Amazon.com. Click through the hyperlink on our show notes or at our website at winewarspodcast.com, and a small portion of those sales go to keeping the show afloat. Greatly appreciate if you do that. No additional charge to you to do that. Just helps out the show. So that'll be it for Wine Wars this week. Thank you all so much for listening. And until next time, please remember,
It's just grape juice.
1, 2, 3, 4. Wine Wars.